Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're doing something a little different. Usually we're sitting here with a stack of polished articles, maybe a retrospective report or something. But today, we are right on the ground.
We really are.
We're looking at a transcript of a live video update from a place called Magere. And honestly, reading through this, my heart rate went up a little.
Oh, yes.
It feels frantic.
It really does. And when you say live, you can feel that texture in the text itself. This isn't some press release that's been run through a PR team or, sanitized.
Not at all.
This is raw. It's immediate.
Completely. The source here is a video uploaded by Bobi Wine titled just Live from Magere.
Yeah.
And the syntax, it's broken, it's hurried. You see phrases like break news and update as quick as possible.
Right.
The speaker isn't worried about grammar. They're worried about time. They're trying to get information out before they can't.
That's the vibe, like you said. It's the grammar of urgency. This speaker, Bobi Wine, is clearly operating under a lot of pressure. He explicitly asks listeners to push this message as far as you can.
Yeah, I saw that.
That tells us everything. He feels the situation is fluid, maybe even dangerous, and that, public awareness is the only safety net they have left.
That's exactly how it reads to me. It feels less like a news report and more like a wiretap or a breathless field report from a conflict zone. And we need to set the stage here for you. The focus is the home of Bobi Wine, and the text is very specific about how it labels him.
Very specific.
It's not just a name.
No. The transcript identifies Bobi Wine explicitly as a presidential candidate. It also uses the term MZ and HE or His Excellency. That framing is essential for how we should be looking at this.
Why is that?
Well, we aren't just looking at a dispute between, say, a private citizen and the police. By using those titles, the source is telling us this is a state-level event. This is about the democratic process being physically contained.
So our mission for this deep dive is to parse through this frantic update. We need to figure out what is actually happening at that gate. We need to look at the security forces involved, the surveillance tech that's apparently hovering overhead. And this is the part that really struck me, this very specific detail about denying access to family members.
Yes.
Because the headline here, if you had to write one, is that the candidate is being cut off.
It paints a picture of containment. That is the theme we're going to see running through every single line of this text. It's not just about security. It's about isolation.
Okay, so let's get right into the thick of it. Let's look at the lineup on the ground. The report lists the forces involved, and it's quite a cocktail. We've got the police, which you'd expect for crowd control or traffic, but then it lists the army and general security operatives. Is that standard?
It's definitely a distinct choice. Usually domestic issues are police matters. Police are trained for civil order, for interacting with civilians. When you bring in the army, you are escalating the threat level significantly. You're signaling that this isn't just about law enforcement. This is national security. You are deploying military assets against a residential target.
And that third group, security operatives. That sounds incredibly vague.
It is intentionally vague. In these geopolitical contexts, security operatives is often a catch-all for plainclothes officers, intelligence agents, special units. It adds an element of unpredictability.
How so?
You know what a soldier does. They follow orders. They stand guard. You know what a policeman does. But an operative, you have no idea what their specific mandate is. You don't know who they report to.
It just feels like overkill just to stop people from visiting a house. And speaking of stopping people, there's a visual detail in the text that really stuck with me. The source mentions spikes, specifically policia spikes.
Yeah, that jumped out at me too. That is a very hard visual.
When I hear spikes, I'm thinking about those things they throw on the highway to stop a high-speed chase.
Right.
Or maybe something you'd see at a high-security prison. Are they putting these in a driveway?
That's the implication. Road spikes are a tool of denial. They aren't a gate you can just open and close easily. They are a threat of physical damage to any vehicle that tries to cross.
So it turns a residence into a hard target.
Exactly. It suggests that the people inside aren't just being watched, they are being besieged.
So just imagine that scene. You're driving up to this house in Magere. You aren't just met by a do not enter sign or a police officer waving you down. You're met by soldiers, these ambiguous operatives, and tire-shredding spikes deployed on the road.
It creates a siege mentality. It sends a message that says, you are not visiting a home, you are approaching a fortress. And the source makes it clear this whole setup is there to enforce a very hard no.
But here is where it gets really interesting and honestly a little creepy. We've talked about the ground game, the spikes and the soldiers. But the source takes a turn into something more technological. There's a mention of a drone.
Right. The transcript says drone hovering over the night before.
Hovering over the night before. That specific phrasing, it sticks with you. It implies this isn't a 9-to-5 operation.
Exactly. A checkpoint is one thing. You can see the soldiers. You know where they are. You know where the spikes are. But a drone at night, that changes the entire dimension of the surveillance.
It's invisible.
It's constant.
And all condemn what is wrong.
In your most private moments.
It creates a panopticon effect, the feeling that you are never unobserved. For the people inside that house and for anyone nearby, the sound of a drone, that faint buzzing at night, adds this whole layer of psychological pressure.
A reminder.
A reminder that the state's eyes are always open. It doesn't sleep.
And the source connects this drone activity to criminals in a sort of fragmented sense. It's a bit garbled, but the implication seems to be that the surveillance is being treated as a response to criminal activity, or maybe that the act itself is criminal.
Right, it's unclear. But regardless of the specific accusation, the presence of the drone is a hard fact in the report. It signifies a high-tech investment in this containment. Drones aren't standard issue for every beat cop. Their presence at a residential home confirms the high priority of the target.
It reinforces that national security idea we touched on.
It does.
So we have the ground blockade with spikes, we have the air surveillance with drones, but then there's a third layer the source touches on, which might be the most insidious, the human element.
This is the part of the transcript that requires a really careful read. The source says operatives went to Walla, which, implies approached or went to and asked stuff.
Asked stuff. It sounds so casual, almost like they just asked for directions.
I know, but then you have to read the next part. Try to compromise one to tip them off if I come around.
Compromise one.
That phrasing, compromise one, is crucial. This is classic human intelligence gathering. Human. The allegation here is that the security forces aren't just standing guard, they are actively trying to turn people.
They're trying to turn them into informants.
Exactly. Tip them off if I come around. They want inside information on movement. They want to know who is coming and going before they even get to the spikes. But look at that word compromise. It implies leverage. It implies finding a weak link.
Just think about what that does to the atmosphere inside the house. You're already trapped behind spikes. There's a drone buzzing overhead. And now, because of these operatives, you have to look at your own staff people you trust and wonder, did they get to him? Is he the one tipping them off?
It dissolves trust. And that is a very, very effective tool of control.
I'll bet.
If you can't trust the people around you because operatives are out there offering deals or making threats, you isolate yourself even further. It reinforces the physical isolation of the spikes with the psychological isolation.
It's a pincer movement. Physical barriers on the outside, mistrust on the inside.
And remember, the source explicitly says they wanted to know if I come around. It's about predictive control. They don't just want to stop movement, they want to anticipate it.
Okay, so we've established the environment. It is high security, high tech, and high paranoia. But now we need to talk about the core incident that triggered this specific update. The source isn't just describing the scene for fun. Something happened.
Right. And this is the humanitarian angle. The report states clearly that family members have been denied access to Bobi Wine's home.
And it gets specific. It mentions sisters and brothers.
Yes, the text uses the word Uganda in the context of the region that refers to siblings, close kin, brothers and sisters. This is a significant distinction. We are not talking about political allies. We're not talking about campaign managers or journalists trying to get a scoop. We are talking about blood relatives.
That's what hit me. You expect a presidential candidate to have security protocols. You expect maybe crowds to be managed. But when the report says the police have no kick up to be there, basically just a flat refusal to brothers and sisters, that feels personal.
It shifts the narrative completely. If you block a campaign manager, you are blocking politics. If you block a brother or a sister, you are blocking humanity. You are cutting off the personal support network. The source says family members' excellence, they have been blocked. It's a very direct statement.
And just to clarify for everyone listening,
Yeah.
the police simply said no.
According to the source, yes. It wasn't come back later or fill out this form. It was a denial of access. And think about that in the context of the MZ and presidential candidate titles we talked about earlier.
Right. H.E. Bobi Wine.
The source is setting up this huge contrast here. On one hand, you have a man with the title of His Excellency, a figure running for the highest office. On the other, he has been stripped of the most basic right, the ability to welcome his own sister into his home.
It really underlines that concept of denied access. It's not just you can't come in, it's we control who comes in.
Control is the key word. The state, via the army and police, has assumed total control over the environment. They control the road with spikes, they control the air with drones, they attempt to control the social network by compromising staff.
And family?
And ultimately, and perhaps most painfully, they control the family unit by physically blocking the siblings.
It creates this profound sense of isolation. And you can see why the source, J.B. Muwange, is so frantic to update as quick as possible.
Folks.
In a situation like this, information is the only thing that can flow freely, if you can get it out.
That's why he says, push this message as far as you can. He knows that once the message stops moving, the isolation is complete. If the world stops looking, the spikes and the drones are all that's left. The video transcript itself is an act of resistance against that isolation.
It really makes you think about the definition of house arrest or containment. It's not always a legal decree read in a court. Sometimes it's just guys with guns and spikes saying no to your family.
Precisely. It's a de facto detention. You don't need a warrant if you have enough spikes and enough soldiers to simply make movement impossible.
So let's zoom out for a second. We've gone through the transcript line by line. We've seen the mechanics of this blockade. What's the bigger picture here? Why does this specific report from Magere matter to someone listening, halfway across the world?
It matters because it gives us a granular look at how political containment actually works in practice. We often hear these terms in the abstract, restricted movement surveillance state.
Right, they're just buzzwords sometimes.
Exactly. But this report breaks it down into the gritty details. It shows us the toolkit.
The toolkit being spikes, drones, turned staff, blocked families.
Exactly. It strips away the abstraction. It shows the physical and psychological toll on the candidate and their inner circle. It shows us that political struggle isn't just about speeches and ballots. It's about the physical space around a person being constricted until they are completely cut off.
So to recap what we've pulled from this source, we have a confirmation of a heavy security deployment at Magere, specifically targeting the home of presidential candidate Bobi Wine. This force includes the army, police, and operatives. They are using physical barriers like spikes and surveillance tech like drones.
And most critically for this specific update, they have enforced a strict no-access policy for his immediate family, his brothers and sisters. That is the core takeaway. The isolation has moved from the political sphere to the personal.
And there's that allegation of them trying to compromise staff to act as informants. It is a full-spectrum lockdown.
It is. It's a comprehensive strategy. If you look at it tactically, it's impressive in a terrifying way. They have covered every avenue of support: physical access, spikes, information access, drones, trust networks, compromised staff, emotional support, blocked family.
It leaves you with a heavy feeling. We often talk about security versus liberty, but this feels like a very, very sharp point on that spear.
It certainly does. It raises a fundamental question about the proportionality of state power. When does security become suppression?
Which brings us to our final thought for you to chew on today. We've laid out the spikes, the drones, the army, all to stop family members from visiting a presidential candidate. The question is, if this level of military-grade force is required to keep a brother and sister apart, where is the line drawn between security and total isolation?
At what point does protection or order become simple, punitive confinement? That is the question this transcript forces us to ask.
Something to think about. We'll be keeping an eye on any further updates from the source, just as they requested. Until then, thanks for listening to The Deep Dive.
Stay curious.